"Sir, step away from the truck. You don't have permission to be on this street." Those were the first words I heard after buying my new lake house. Not welcome home. Not nice to meet you. A sheriff's deputy standing beside my pickup, one hand resting on his belt, while a woman in a cream-colored sweater pointed at me like she'd just caught someone climbing through her window. Behind her, a white SUV sat crooked across the shoulder, its engine ticking in the cool morning air. My name is Ethan Cole, and less than 20 minutes earlier, I'd been driving toward the best purchase I'd made in years, a weathered cedar lake house on Lake Mercer, 40 feet of private dock, 3 acres of pine trees, and enough silence to make you forget the interstate existed. I could still smell coffee inside my cab when I stepped onto the pavement. The lake carried that cold mineral smell water gets before noon, mixed with wet pine needles and the faint bite of gasoline from a fishing boat somewhere beyond the trees. "That's him," the woman said. "He came through our entrance without authorization." Her name, I would soon learn, was Vanessa Whitmore, president of the Silver Pines Lake Association. At that moment, all I knew was that she had called the cops before asking my name. I reached slowly through the open passenger window and pulled out the closing folder I'd picked up 2 days earlier. Thick paper, blue tabs, survey map folded inside. "I own the house at 114 Grayson Point," I said. Vanessa gave a small laugh. "Owning that house doesn't give you access to our private street." That sentence bothered me. I'd spent 17 years around civil infrastructure and property surveys. Roads have boundaries. Access has language. Ownership leaves paperwork. I opened the survey across my hood, and the breeze immediately tried to fold it shut. My house parcel was outlined in black near the lake. Then I noticed something I hadn't paid much attention to at closing. A narrow strip running from my property almost half a mile toward the county road. Parcel B, separate legal description. Separate boundary lines. Vanessa was already telling the deputy she wanted my truck removed. I stared at that strip for maybe 3 seconds, then pulled out my phone and called Rachel Monroe, the title attorney who had handled the closing. "Rachel," I said when she answered, "I need you to verify Parcel B. Right now." Vanessa folded her arms. "You can make all the calls you want. This is our street." I looked down at the asphalt beneath her shoes, then back at the survey fluttering against my hood. "Maybe," I said. "But before anyone tows my truck, you might want to find out who owns the pavement under it." The deputy did not answer right away. His eyes moved from Vanessa to the survey spread across my hood, then back to me. I could hear pine branches rubbing together above us and the soft slap of lake water against a dock somewhere downhill. That quiet brought me back to the first afternoon I had seen the place, 3 weeks earlier. I had not been looking for anything impressive. After 17 years working around drainage systems, road projects, utility corridors, and property surveys, I wanted somewhere that did not sound like machinery. The Grayson house was exactly that. It sat at the end of a winding road beneath tall pines, a weathered cedar place with a stone chimney, faded green shutters, and a narrow dock stretching into Lake Mercer. The realtor apologized for its condition before I even stepped inside. I liked it immediately. The porch boards creaked. The kitchen smelled faintly of old coffee and cedar cabinets. Through the back windows, sunlight scattered across the lake like broken glass. The previous owner, Walter Grayson, had lived there for more than 40 years before moving closer to his daughter in Tennessee. He had maintained the house carefully, but the paperwork surrounding it was another story. At closing, Rachel placed a thick folder in front of me and explained that the property had been assembled through several old parcels dating back decades. There was the house lot, the shoreline tract, and something labeled Parcel B, access strip. I remember running my thumb over the survey map while the air conditioner hummed above us. "Anything unusual?" I asked. Rachel paused before answering. "Old property," she said. "Old descriptions." Nothing. That prevented closing. I should have asked another question. Instead, I signed. 2 days later, I loaded my tools, coffee maker, and 3 cardboard boxes into my pickup and headed for Lake Mercer. About a quarter mile before the house, I passed a rusted metal sign nearly swallowed by vines. Private access. Below it, barely visible through the corrosion, was the year 1968. I slowed down but kept driving. Then I noticed small brass survey markers near the gravel shoulder, one on each side of the pavement. At the time, they meant nothing. Now, standing beside a sheriff's cruiser while Vanessa insisted the road belonged to her association, Those details came back with uncomfortable clarity. The old sign. The markers. Parcel B. My phone vibrated in my hand. Rachel had sent one message. I found the original legal description. Give me 10 minutes. I locked the screen before Vanessa could see it. She smiled like the matter was already settled. I folded the survey carefully and slid it back into the folder. For the first time that morning, I was in no hurry at all. 10 minutes turned into 12. Vanessa spent every one of them explaining my situation to me as if I had somehow missed the obvious. She stood beside her white sport utility vehicle with a leather folder tucked under one arm, her sunglasses pushed into perfectly arranged blonde hair. Silver Pines is a private lake community, she said. Residents pay for security, road maintenance, shoreline management, and controlled access. You cannot simply purchase an old house and ignore community standards. I looked past her toward the water. Morning light flashed between the pines, and somewhere nearby a sprinkler clicked steadily across a lawn. I purchased the property through a licensed title company, I said. Then your title company should have explained the association requirements. She opened her folder and produced a printed form. The paper was heavy, expensive, and still smelled faintly of fresh toner. Across the top were the words Silver Pines Lake Association Membership Agreement. She tapped the signature line with one manicured finger. Sign this, pay the initial access assessment, and we can. Forget this misunderstanding. The amount printed near the bottom was $4,800. Beneath it was an annual road fee of $2,400, plus a gate access charge. I read the page twice. What happens if I do not sign? Her smile tightened. Then you have no authorized access through association property. The deputy shifted his weight. Ma'am, if he owns the house, there has to be some form of legal access. Vanessa barely looked at him. There is. Through membership. That was the first moment I knew something was wrong beyond ordinary neighborhood politics. Access rights do not usually appear because somebody hands you a membership form beside a police cruiser. They exist in deeds, easements, plats, and recorded agreements. I asked Vanessa one simple question. Who owns this road? She gave me the answer immediately. Silver Pines does. The association itself? Of course. Do you have the deed? The confidence in her face changed by half an inch. Most people would not have noticed. I did. Our attorneys maintained those records. I nodded and handed her form back without signing it. My phone buzzed again. Rachel was calling this time, but I declined it and slipped the phone into my pocket. I wanted Vanessa to finish talking first. She pointed toward the pavement. Everyone on this street pays us for access, Mr. Cole. Every homeowner. No exceptions. There it was. Not a threat. Something better. A claim. Clear, specific, and made in front of a sheriff's deputy. I glanced down at the dark asphalt, then toward the brass marker near the shoulder. The little disc caught the sunlight like a coin. Good to know, I said. Vanessa mistook my calm for surrender. She had no idea I had just started listening very carefully. By noon, the sheriff's cruisers were gone, but Vanessa had found a quieter way to make herself impossible to ignore. The first notice was taped to my front door before I had finished carrying boxes into the kitchen. Unauthorized road use. The second arrived by email 40 minutes later. Unregistered vehicle. By sunset, I had received a third notice demanding payment of the $4,800 access assessment within 10 business days. I stood on the porch reading it while the lake turned copper beneath the evening sun. Pine resin warmed in the air. My pickup clicked softly as its engine cooled beside the house. I had owned the place for less than one day, and Silver Pines had already created a file on me. The next morning brought another surprise. My electronic gate code stopped working. I entered the number twice. Red light. I tried again. Red light. A small camera above the keypad stared down at me while my coffee steamed in the cup holder. Vanessa answered the intercom after the fourth attempt. Association access is limited to members in good standing. I looked at the gate, then at the narrow gravel shoulder disappearing into the trees. You disabled my access to my house. We suspended association privileges. There was that word again. Association. She kept describing the road as private property, but every action she took depended on convincing me to sign paperwork that would make me a member. I parked near the entrance and walked almost half a mile back toward the house. My boots made a dry scraping sound along the pavement. That was when I noticed another brass marker beside a drainage ditch. I brushed away pine needles with my shoe. Same survey stamp. Same alignment as the marker near my driveway. That afternoon, a certified envelope arrived. Vanessa had added a $250 administrative penalty and warned that vehicles using the road without authorization could be subject to towing. I spread every notice across the old oak dining table. For letters, 3 invoices, 1 membership agreement. I could smell dust from the moving boxes and fresh coffee beside my laptop. Instead of arguing, I started making a folder. Dates, times, emails, photographs, screenshots of the gate message. 17 years around infrastructure disputes had taught me something useful. When people are confident enough to put questionable claims in writing, never interrupt them. Rachel called again just after 6. This time I answered. I have been tracing the records, she said. Her voice had changed from professional curiosity to something sharper. Ethan, do not sign Vanessa's agreement. Do not pay anything yet. I leaned back and looked through the window toward the road. Why? Papers shifted on Rachel's end of the call. Because I cannot find any deed transferring that road to Silver Pines. Outside, tires whispered across the asphalt as another resident drove home. I watched the car disappear between the trees. Then who owns it? I asked. Rachel went quiet for a second. That is what I am trying to confirm. The next morning, I walked the road before sunrise with a flashlight, a tape measure, and the survey folded under my arm. Mist hung over Lake Mercer like thin smoke, and every sound carried farther in the cold air. A screen door closed somewhere across the water. Tires hummed on the county road. Under my boots, the asphalt was still damp with dew. I started at the brass marker near my driveway and followed the boundary line north. 80 feet later, I found another marker buried beneath pine needles. Then another near a drainage culvert. Each one landed exactly where Parcel B said it should. That was when my old instincts took over. I stopped looking at the road like a homeowner and started looking at it like an infrastructure contractor. The drainage ditch sat inside the boundary. The gravel shoulder sat inside the boundary. Even the stone entrance columns near the main gate appeared to sit inside the same narrow strip. I unfolded the survey across the hood of my pickup and traced the black lines with my finger. Parcel B ran almost half a mile from the lake property to the county road. It was not crossing the street. It was the street. My phone rang at 7:23. Rachel did not waste time. I found Walter Grayson's original purchase records from 1968, she said. He bought the house parcel and the access strip separately. I stared toward the gate. Was the strip ever transferred? Not that I can find. There is a recorded easement from 1989 allowing neighboring property owners to use it for residential access, but an easement is not ownership. The words landed quietly. No dramatic music. No thunder. Just a chickadee calling from a pine tree and the faint smell of wet pavement. And Silver Pines? I asked. The association was created years later. I found maintenance language, but no conveyance of title. I looked again at the road. For years, residents had driven across it, paid fees for it, and listened to Vanessa call it association property. Yet the county records seemed to be telling a very different story. I needed certainty before I made a single accusation. I called Daniel Price, a licensed surveyor I had worked with on 2 drainage projects years earlier. By 10 that morning, he was standing beside me with a survey-grade receiver mounted on a pole. We walked the shoulder slowly while his equipment chirped at each recorded point. Near the entrance, Daniel stopped beside one of the stone columns and checked his screen twice. Interesting, he said. What? He pointed at the pavement stretching behind us. Your deed description follows both sides of this road all the way back to your lake parcel. I felt the cold metal edge of the survey tube against my palm. So the road is inside my property. Daniel looked at me carefully. According to these recorded calls, yes. But let me certify it before you celebrate. Across the street, a white sport utility vehicle had just stopped. Vanessa lowered her window and stared at the orange survey flags appearing along what she still believed was her road. Vanessa stayed in her sport utility vehicle for less than a minute before stepping out. I heard the door close behind me while Daniel continued checking coordinates. Her shoes clicked against the pavement with the sharp rhythm of someone arriving to stop a problem she believed belonged to her. What exactly are you doing? She asked. I turned around, verifying my property boundaries. Her eyes moved toward the orange flags Daniel had placed along the shoulder. This is association property. You cannot conduct unauthorized surveys here. Daniel lowered his equipment and calmly introduced himself as a licensed surveyor. That only made her expression harder. Silver Pines has maintained this road for 20 years. Maintenance is not the same thing as ownership, I said. Vanessa pulled out her phone. Remove those markers. I did. Not move. Neither did Daniel. Instead, I photographed every flag, every brass monument, and both stone entrance columns. Then I photographed the gate keypad that had rejected my code the day before. Vanessa watched me without speaking. That silence lasted until she drove away. By lunchtime, I had another email from her. It ordered me to stop unauthorized surveying and warned that Silver Pines would pursue reimbursement for any damage to association landscaping. I saved the message as a portable document file, printed a copy, and added it to the folder on my dining table. Then something interesting happened. Vanessa kept writing. She sent an invoice identifying the street as a Silver Pines capital asset. She forwarded a road maintenance schedule. She even attached meeting minutes from the previous year approving access fees for every household using the road. I read each document twice. If Rachel and Daniel were right, Vanessa was creating a remarkably clean record of claims the association might not have been entitled to make. So I stopped correcting her. Over the next 2 days, Daniel completed the fieldwork while Rachel traced the chain of title through county records. I spent my evenings scanning every letter Vanessa sent me. The old house became an evidence room almost by accident. Survey maps covered the dining table. Deeds sat beside my coffee maker. Orange sticky notes climbed across the wall near the window. Outside, residents continued driving past as they always had, tires making that soft hiss against the asphalt. On Thursday afternoon, Rachel called. The title history is clean, she said. Walter retained parcel B until the sale to you. I am ordering certified copies now. I looked through the window toward the road. What about the homeowners? Their recorded easements remain valid. Nobody loses access. That mattered to me. I had no interest in punishing families who had done nothing wrong. And the association? I asked. Rachel paused. I still cannot find anything giving Silver Pines ownership of the road. Before I could answer, another sound rolled through the trees. A truck engine. I stepped onto the porch and saw a towing company vehicle, stopping beside Vanessa's white sport utility vehicle near my driveway. Vanessa climbed out holding her leather folder. Then she raised her phone. She was calling law enforcement again. I slipped the certified survey copy into my folder and walked toward the road. This time, I knew exactly where the boundary was. Vanessa reached me before the deputy did. The tow truck idled 20 feet away, its diesel engine sending a low vibration through the pavement. You were warned, she said, holding up another sheet of association letterhead. Your vehicle is using a private road without authorization. I looked at my pickup sitting beside my own driveway, then at the orange survey flag less than 6 feet from her shoes. I would wait before towing anything. She gave me the same polished smile I had seen on my first morning. We have already waited long enough. A sheriff's cruiser rolled around the bend and stopped behind a tow truck. Deputy Harris stepped out. He was the same officer who had seen Vanessa's membership agreement days earlier, and his expression suggested he remembered every word. What is the issue this time? Vanessa answered before I could. Mr. Cole continues to trespass on association property. We have authorized removal of his vehicle. Harris looked at me. I handed him Daniel's certified survey. The paper made a dry snapping sound in the breeze. Before anybody removes anything, I think you should read the legal description. Vanessa sighed. We have been through this. Not with this document, I said. Harris unfolded the survey across the hood of his cruiser. Vanessa stepped closer, pointing toward the entrance. Silver Pines owns and maintains this entire street. Harris studied the boundary lines. Do you have a recorded deed showing that? Our attorney has all association records. That is not what I asked. For the first time, Vanessa stopped talking. My phone rang. Rachel. I answered and put her on speaker. Ethan, I have the certified chain of title, she said. The county recorder confirmed it this morning. Even the tow truck driver seemed to listen. Tell me exactly what it says. Papers rustled on Rachel's end. Parcel B was purchased by Walter Grayson in 1968. In 1989, he granted residential access easements to the neighboring lots. He never conveyed ownership of the underlying parcel to Silver Pines or any predecessor association. Harris looked down at the asphalt. Vanessa's face went still. Rachel continued. When Walter sold the property, Parcel B transferred with the other recorded parcels. Your deed includes the entire access strip from Grayson Point to the county road. I could hear wind moving through the pines behind us. So who owns the road? I asked. Rachel answered without hesitation. You do, Ethan. Subject to the homeowner's recorded easement rights, the land beneath that street belongs to you. Vanessa shook her head. That is impossible. I opened my folder and handed Harris the title documents Rachel had sent electronically that morning. There is something else, Rachel said. I reviewed the association records Vanessa sent you. Silver Pines has been collecting road access charges while representing this parcel as an association-owned capital asset. Harris slowly turned toward Vanessa. The tow truck driver switched off his engine. The sudden silence felt enormous. I looked down the street toward the houses hidden among the pines. Nothing around us had physically changed. Same asphalt, same gate, same lake breeze. But in less than one phone call, Vanessa had gone from trying to remove me from her road to standing on mine. The tow truck left empty 3 minutes later. Vanessa stayed. She stood beside the stone entrance column with her leather folder pressed against her side, while Deputy Harris compared the certified survey with the county parcel map Rachel had sent to my phone. The morning smelled of warm asphalt and pine sap. A few neighbors had stepped onto their porches, drawn outside by the cruiser and the orange survey flags. Vanessa finally found her voice. Even if Walter owned the underlying land, Silver Pines has maintained this road for decades. That may establish responsibilities under existing agreements, I said. It does not rewrite a deed. Harris handed the survey back to me. This looks like a civil property matter, but based on what you have. Show me. I am not authorizing anyone to treat Mr. Cole as a trespasser. Vanessa opened her mouth, then closed it. That afternoon, Rachel sent formal notice to the Silver Pines board, the association attorney, and the county recorder. The letter was simple. My ownership of Parcel B did not cancel the homeowner's recorded easements. Every resident could continue driving to and from their property exactly as before. But the association could no longer represent itself as owner of the land without producing a valid recorded instrument. That distinction changed everything. By Friday, my inbox was filling with messages from neighbors. Some were nervous. Most were confused. One came from a retired accountant named Thomas Reed, who lived halfway down the street. He attached 7 years of annual statements. You should probably see these, he wrote. I opened the first one at my dining table. Road access assessment. Gate administration fee. Capital roadway reserve. The charges repeated year after year. Rachel reviewed the documents and told me not to speculate. We needed records, not assumptions. So several homeowners formally requested the association's financial statements and meeting minutes. The response came faster than expected. Silver Pines scheduled an emergency board meeting Sunday afternoon. I attended with Rachel and Daniel. The community room smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner. Vanessa sat at the front beneath a framed photograph of Lake Mercer. Her usual confidence was gone. The association attorney spoke first. He confirmed that their preliminary title review had found no deed showing Silver Pines owned Parcel B. Then the treasurer admitted the road had been listed as an association capital asset because everyone had simply assumed it belonged to them. Nobody could explain when that assumption began. The room went completely quiet when Thomas asked how many access fees had been collected under that assumption. Vanessa tried to redirect the discussion toward maintenance expenses. The board did not let her. By the end of the meeting, they had approved an independent financial review, suspended new road access charges, and removed Vanessa's authority to issue access restrictions while the records were examined. 3 days later, she resigned as president. I watched her white sport utility vehicle pass my lake house that evening, tires whispering across Parcel B. I could have made her uncomfortable. Instead, I did nothing. The residents had legal access, and I intended to honor it. Taking away someone's imaginary power was enough. 2 weeks later, the first thing I changed was not the gate. It was the sign. Daniel met me near the county road on a clear Saturday morning while I installed 2 cedar posts beside the old stone entrance. The air smelled like fresh-cut wood and damp pine needles. Behind us, Lake Mercer flashed blue between the trees. I removed the faded Silver Pines road sign and replaced it with something smaller. Private road. Resident access protected by recorded easement. Nothing threatening. Nothing dramatic. Just the truth in black letters. The financial review took another month. It showed years of road assessments had been collected and placed into association accounts under records that described Parcel B as association property. Some of that money had actually paid for legitimate maintenance, but other charges lacked clear authorization. The board hired an independent accountant, froze disputed assessments, and began calculating credits for homeowners. Rachel helped draft a maintenance agreement that finally separated two things Vanessa had spent years pretending were the same: ownership and access. I owned the land beneath the road. The residents retained their recorded right to use it. Maintenance costs would be transparent, documented, and shared under an agreement nobody could quietly rewrite. The electronic gate stayed, but control no longer belonged to one association president with a clipboard. Every household received permanent access tied to its recorded easement. Nobody had to ask my permission to drive home. That was never the point. One evening in early October, I sat on my porch with a mug of coffee cooling between my hands. The cedar siding behind me still needed work. Half the dock boards were waiting to be replaced. My toolboxes were stacked inside the garage, exactly where I had dropped them on moving day. But the place finally felt like mine. Tires whispered along the road beneath the pines. Then I saw the familiar white sport utility vehicle approaching. Vanessa slowed near the new sign. For several seconds, she just looked at it. Then she continued toward her house. No confrontation, no police call, no leather folder. Just another resident using an easement that had been there long before either of us arrived. I remembered that first morning, standing beside my pickup while she told me I had no permission to be there. I remembered Parcel B fluttering across the hood, the brass markers hidden under pine needles, and the certainty in her voice when she called the pavement hers. The road had never moved an inch. The survey lines had never changed. The deed had been sitting in the county records the entire time. All I had done was read what everyone else had stopped reading. I took another sip of coffee and listened as Vanessa's tires faded into the distance. She had tried to keep me off a street she believed she controlled. In the end, she drove home across my property, protected by the very law she once tried to use against me. Justice did not need a gate slammed shut. It only needed the right line on the right piece of paper.